Hello everyone, this is Mikey Garcia.
Yo, it's your boy, the odd guy himself, Malik King Scott.
Hi, I'm Charlie Edwards.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to the 5th episode of the BoxHard podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. Today I'm on my own. I'm not joined by Ayaz Sumra, unfortunately. He couldn't be here, so I'm on my own for the review part of the show, so it shouldn't be too long this week. But we're going to get straight into this, or I'm going to get straight into this, with the Wednesday night show in Glendale, Arizona, USA. Lee Selby defended his IBF World Featherweight title against Fernando Montiel. Now, Selby gets his 22nd win. Montiel gets his 5th loss. Fernando Montiel's record now 54 wins, 5 losses and 2 draws. Selby, he won unanimously, but he didn't impress, to be honest. I think a lot of top boys in the featherweight division will now be looking at him because I just think that Selby was getting hit too much. Selby couldn't establish his jab at all throughout the fight. He rarely landed with a jab. But, he done enough to win unanimously in America. That's his first defence of that title, which he won from Evgeny Gradovich. Montiel did quite well. You could see that he had a lot of experience. I think he's a 2 or 3 time world champion. You could see that Fernando Montiel had a lot of experience. He was using his ring smarts on Lee Selby, and Lee Selby did not look as impressive as he has looked. I think he's a great champion, Selby, and I think he can go on to be one of our best champions and a really, really good champion. But I think he did not perform as much as, he didn't impress as much as I thought he would do, especially Montiel, now aged 36. But maybe it was just an off night for Lee Selby. A lot of boxers have those type of days. Moving down that card, Devin Alexander lost a unanimous decision to Aaron Martinez. Aaron Martinez, 19-4. He now moves to 20-4. Devin Alexander is racked up his 4th loss here. Devin Alexander started the fight pretty okay, and then he just sort of lost it midway in the fight, and he let Aaron Martinez take it away from him. So I'm not sure what Devin Alexander's got left. 2 losses on the bounce now. One to Amir Khan last year. That was in December 2014. And now 10 months later, he's got a loss to Aaron Martinez. So I'm not sure what else he's got to offer. He's only 28, so he's still a young boxer, but I don't know. I think maybe his best days are behind him. He possibly peaked too early in his career. That's it for Wednesday. So we'll move over to Friday. Very, very gutsy effort from Nathan Cleverly. He faced Andre Fonfara for the WBC International Light Heavyweight title. It's nice to see Cleverly back at light heavyweight. Cleverly broke his nose during the fight and carried on. He showed so much heart, so much determination. He's actually trying to get himself a rematch as we speak. But Fonfara, I think he's very underrated, very strong. Technically, probably not the best boxer, but very, very tough and very game. He brings a lot to the fight, but he just had a bit too much for Nathan Cleverly, and it's a shame because Nathan Cleverly, I think he's running out of options at the moment. I don't think he's got many other places to go. I know he turned down a world title fight with Jürgen Bremer to fight Fonfara. A lot of people probably wouldn't put Fonfara above Bremer, and he's lost to Fonfara, so I'm not sure what he does from here. I wish Nathan Cleverly all the best because I think he was a great champion when he was a champion. Just don't know what he's got left in him. Very, very hard fight against Tony Bellew, of course. Then we go over to Saturday. Now, on Saturday, there was a little card at York Hall. Well, I say it was a little card. It was huge. I think there was 19 fights on the bill. But Matty Askin topped that bill. Matty Askin got a win over Lawrence Bennett. Oh, sorry, no, he didn't get a win. My mistake. He got a technical draw. First round, both boxers fell through the ropes and out of the ring. Barrett returning, but Askin being unable to. He was stretchered from the venue. Hospital checks revealed that Askin had suffered severe bruising to his back and ribs. So very, very crazy start and end to a fight there. Matty Askin, Lawrence Bennett. We may see that rescheduled in the near future. There was a grudge match on the bill, a real genuine grudge match. Leon McKenzie fought John McCallum. Leon McKenzie gets the win. John McCallum retired after the 6th round. So that was an eliminator for the British super middleweight title. So Leon McKenzie getting ever closer to the British title. Big ambition of his, big dream of his. Hopefully he can do it. We're all behind him here. There was a show in Birmingham. Cal Yafai moved to 17-0. He defeated Jason Cunningham. That was for the vacant British super flyweight title. Cal Yafai, big prospect for the future. His brother was also on the bill, Gamal Yafai. He's moved to 8-0. He fought Nasibu Ramahadni. Ramahadni had 1 point deducted in the 8th round because he kept holding. Sam Eggington got a win unanimously after 12 rounds over Dow Evans. Sam Eggington was knocked down in the 2nd round. He walked straight on to a right hand by Dow Evans, and I thought we're going to really see what Eggington's made of. And he got straight back up. He bounced up like a jack in the box and continued fighting. So it's really good to see this happen, because Sam Eggington, a big prospect for Matchroom, he's been knocked down, he's got back up, he's managed to win the fight quite clearly. So that was good. That's very, very good for a fighter to go through that type of experience early in their career. Matthew Macklin was also on the bill. He fought for the vacant WBC International Super Welterweight title, also known as the 154 title, the light middleweight title. He fought Jason Wellborn. Wellborn was deducted, a point was deducted in the 5th round for a low blow. I think he hit him twice. I think he hit Matthew Macklin twice. That was called low. The second one, in my opinion, I don't think it was low. But Matthew Macklin went down both times. 1 point was taken away, and he seemed to sort of get his breath back, because I think Matthew Macklin wasn't looking too great in that fight. But nonetheless, he gets his 34th win, unanimous decision. It was only a 10-rounder. Then we move over to America. Now, in America, there was a bill that sort of went underneath the radar. We mentioned it last week. Demetrius Andrade, he fought Dario Fabian Puchetta. Andrade moved to 22-0 now, unbeaten. He got a TKO victory in the 2nd round. That was for the vacant WBA and WBO international super welterweight titles. That's obviously the 154 division yet again, but they're only international titles, so it's not a world title or anything like that. But nonetheless, another piece of silverware for Andrade. Huge prospect for the future. Joey Abel, who we saw fight Tyson Fury, he got a win. This was in Black Bear Casino in Minnesota. He fought Juan Good. Joey Abel moves to 31-8. Juan Good was only, he's now 6-2. He hasn't had a huge career. He only started boxing in 2011 professionally. Moving over to the huge card in MSG, Madison Square Garden, Triple G, Gennady Golovkin fought David Lemieux. This was a unification fight in the middleweight division. Lemieux brought his IBF world middleweight title, which he won against Hassan and Dam in his last fight. So it was his first defence of his IBF title. He fought Golovkin. Golovkin brought to the table his IBO middleweight title. Again, that's not regarded as one of the biggest belts in boxing, the IBO, but nonetheless, he brought his IBO world middleweight title. He brought his interim WBC world middleweight title and his WBA super world middleweight title. So there was 4 world titles on the line, 3 of them in which are regarded as the belts to get, the belts that everybody wants. Gennady Golovkin moved to 34-0 with 31 knockouts. He stopped David Lemieux in the 8th round. David Lemieux showed a lot of heart, a lot of courage. He came out literally every round throwing bombs, but he just was unable to really hit Golovkin. When he hit Golovkin, Golovkin was not really affected by his power. Golovkin was absolutely sensational. He did say in the build-up that he was going to show the fans a big drama show. He really did. From the first round, second round, third round, he was dominating Lemieux. He was outboxing Lemieux, but really schooling him. Golovkin's jab, and I'm going to go on record and say this, I think that Golovkin has got one of the best jabs in world boxing. This guy, and it wasn't just because he fought Lemieux, because, Lemieux, he hasn't got a lot of head movement. He's pretty easy to hit, in my opinion. Golovkin has just got an absolutely fantastic jab. We've seen him knock people down with a jab. He's got scary power in both hands, and Golovkin is a real force to be reckoned with now. He's now fighting the winner of Cotto and Canelo. Cotto and Canelo fight next month. Now the winner of that has to face Golovkin. If they avoid Golovkin, Golovkin ends up taking the belt that they're fighting for, which is the WBC title. At the moment, Golovkin's only got the interim WBC title, which is kind of regarded as, it's not the belt that everybody wants. The interim is more like the second title. They're fighting for the first title, the main one. So that's Cotto and Canelo. So the winner of that faces Golovkin. If they don't face him, then he gets upgraded to that title. If they do face him, then the winner takes all the belts. Golovkin's aim is to get all the belts in the division. So after he fights the winner of Cotto Canelo, he'll be gunning for the winner of Andy Lee against Billy Joe Saunders. That's the WBO title that they hold, that Andy Lee holds. That fight takes place on the 19th of December. So Golovkin trying to get all the belts in the division, you've got to respect him for that. Not a lot of other fighters are trying to, fight no one but unification fights. Moving down that card, Roman Gonzalez, who's on a lot of people's pound-for-pound list, even some people regard him as number one. Roman Gonzalez moves to 44-0, very close to equaling Mayweather's record. He's the WBC World Flyweight title holder. He beat and stopped in the 9th round Brian Viloria. He was down in round 3. Roman Gonzalez, again, if you have not seen this guy box, you've got to get on YouTube. You've got to see what he can do, because he's a fantastic talent in the flyweight division. Moving down that card, Luis Ortiz, King Kong Boxing on Twitter, he fought Matthias Ariel Redondo. He knocked him out in the 3rd round. Redondo was down in round 2 and round 3. It was a really, really big knockout, a big punch. The first knockdown was pretty heavy, and the second knockdown was the finisher. So you should watch that if you can. That was a good fight while it lasted. Again, Luis Ortiz, he's the Cuban southpaw. He moves to 23-0. He's unbeaten. He holds the interim WBA World Heavyweight title. So hopefully we'll see him fight someone, with a bigger name in the near future. Also, again, another under the radar fight. This was in Virginia, USA. Top of the bill, Lamont Peterson. He got a win. He picked up his 34th win against Felix Diaz. He won that with a majority decision after 12 rounds. Okay, it's time for our guest on this show. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Dave Coldwell. Dave, welcome to the show.
How's it going, mate? All right?
Very good, yes, very good. Okay, so we've got a few questions for you. You obviously was a pro boxer yourself, then you went into promoting, training, managing. Do you still do all of those roles today?
Yes, I do, yeah. Obviously, I'm very active in the managing side of things. We've got about 25 fighters that I look after, all at different levels, guys on the circuit, prospects coming through, and then obviously champions and fighters like that. Training wise, I train Tony Bellew, Jamie McDonnell, Gavin McDonnell at the moment. So I've got those 3. And promotional wise, we're still doing shows, not as busy as what I was, because I've took a little bit of a backseat on that side of things, concentrating more on the management and training side of things.
Yeah, because you look after the three fighters, the two McDonnell brothers and Tony Bellew. So there's only three fighters, but a lot of potential in those three fighters.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that goes on with those three fighters training wise. There's a lot of time, lot of energy, a lot of studying fights and things like that. At that sort of level, it's quite it's time consuming. But also the level of boxers that I'm managing as well. We've got them straight across the board. That takes a lot of my time up as well. From fighters like Tom Doran that's boxing for eliminator for a British. He won the prize fighter. Tony Hill's now boxing for WBC silver title. And then you've got your prospects that you're bringing through also. So there's a lot of time and energy that goes into everything that I'm doing. So it's a case of allocating the time out that needs to be done.
And what do you enjoy more out of what you do? Training, promoting, managing?
I would say at the moment the fighters that I'm working with in the gym has reignited my training passion. I'm really enjoying that. But I also enjoy managing fighters. I've got a good young kid, Jordan Cook, who boxed at the weekend on the Sky Show. Watching kids like that, fighters coming through that you're building up. I enjoy mapping out the careers and seeing them coming on through. But promoting, I would say, out of the three is the least enjoyable. All that one is pure stress, and without television, all you're doing is losing money. It's very, very difficult. But managing, I do enjoy, but training, I think I'm enjoying the most at the moment.
I want to ask you something about the McDonnell brothers. Do you, in your opinion, think that Jamie gets enough credit?
No.
No way.
No. To be honest, both kids, because you look at the titles that Gavin's won as well. If a lot of fighters might only have become British champions, but I say I'm not being disparaging when I say only. A lot of fighters, I'm just talking comparison, but a lot of fighters might have only become British champions, but yet get a lot of higher profile and be talked about more, and there's a lot more buzz about them. Now, you look at these kids that they've won every single title that's open to them, from area level, English, British, Commonwealth, European, and with Jamie world, and not just world, but going over to America and beating the favoured guy twice. And I see a change now where Jamie McDonnell's profile has gone higher. He is getting respect, he's getting credit, and more importantly, the boxing fans, wherever I go now, boxing fans are talking to me about Jamie, so that's nice. But it's taken a hell of a long time for him to get there, and also still he's not spoken of in the same regards of other champions out there. I'm not knocking any other champions. Listen, I want as many British world champions as possible. Whether they're anything to do with me or not. I just think it's better for the sport. It's better, as a whole, if we have as many world champs as possible. But I just don't think Jamie gets talked about. Certainly not in the media. But by the big names in boxing, he doesn't get spoke about, or maybe his name's mentioned last in a bunch. Listen, fantastic. Kell Brook's a world champion. James Gale's a world champion. But whenever people are talking about these world champions, those two guys are in front of what Jamie McDonnell is, and Jamie's achieved more.
I think it's like a lot of people, they pay attention to the higher weights, to like the heavies, the cruisers, stuff like that. And
yes,
I don't know why that is. I don't know why that is.
I think they do, but I think they pay attention to the hype.
Yes.
And it's not necessarily the weights. I think it's the hype, and I think if a lot of hype or a lot of media coverage or talk is given to a certain person, that's where the focus goes. And that's just how it is. And like you said though, weight division wise, bantamweight division doesn't get spoken as much, but because there's a lot of hype around Frampton and Scott Quigg, that division is being talked about. That's only £4 heavier than bantamweight. Do you know
Yeah,
what I
that's a
mean?
good
If
point.
Scott Quigg and Frampton were boxing as bantamweights, the bantamweight division would be talked about a lot. Do you get what I'm saying?
Very good point.
It's down to the hype of the fighters. Whatever weight they're in, then if there's a rivalry, it always helps when there's a rivalry. I think Kell Brook's got Amir Khan, so them two are being talked about all the time. So it's built, it's putting focus on that. Amir Khan was chasing Floyd Mayweather, so on a world level, his hype was getting quite big. I think whenever you've got a rivalry in a weight division, it just helps your name get out there. George Groves, James DeGale, they've come through from about 9 and 13 fights respectively, something like that, where people are talking about them constantly, and it's helped their careers. It always does, and unfortunately at bantamweight, there's not really that rivalry as such. The bantamweight division not really got that much money because there's not that much interest in it, apart from when you're boxing on Al Lehman show out in America, and that's where the money is, and that's why James has been boxing out there.
Yeah, no, that's I understand that. Now Gavin fights on Saturday.
Yeah.
He defends his EBU European title. Now he's fighting Jeremy Parody, who we saw fight Carl Frampton 2 years back now.
Yeah.
This is a very, very tough opponent.
Very tough, man. Very tough.
What sort of footage are you watching of Parody?
Not really a lot of the Carl Frampton fight. I don't think he's going to box like he did against Frampton. I've watched about 6 or 7 of his fights, and they're all his winning fights, where he comes forward, where he's fighting tall, rangy guys. He's coming forward. He's letting go with shots quite viciously as well. He really likes to throw that right hand over a lazy left jab, fire it in fast, and then it really whips in a left hook. He's an aggressive little guy that keeps rumbling forward. Against Frampton, I think what he thought was, this guy can really punch. Probably got hit early doors and thought, I can feel this power. And he boxed in a more not survival, but it was more survival than anything else in that fight. I think he was a lot more negative than what he normally is. He showed a lot of movement in that, just trying to get away from Frampton shots and trying to find pot shots himself. I don't think he boxes like that against Gavin, because I think you look at Gavin McDonnell on his videos, tapes, or internet, or YouTube, or whatever you want to do, and he's not a banger. He's not particularly fast, and he's there to be it. So I think he's going to come rumbling forward, trying to take Gavin out and really trying to put him under pressure. Gavin McDonnell now, compared to the last times in the fight, he's showing a lot of different things. So it's going to be interesting on fight night to see how Gavin performs under the lights.
And I just wanted to ask also, last question on the McDonnell brothers. There's a lot of brothers in boxing. When they're in the gym, some of them stay away from each other. I know that they're very close. They're always in each other's corner.
Yeah.
Do they spar each other at all?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do.
Do they go for it?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, it's good. It is good, but apparently all they did mainly was spar with each other mainly, and in-house sparring. But now, I've brought sparring partners in for Jamie. I've brought sparring partners in for Gavin, and then they'll spar together rarely and if when needed, but they still do. When they do, it is full on. There's a lot of banter between the pair of them, where one's telling the other one that his belts don't mean anything because he's not got a world title, and the other one's telling him that, well, you might have a world title, but you've been beat. I'm only one that's unbeaten in family. So there's a lot of banter that's going on between those two constantly. It's good fun, and it's a really good atmosphere, and they bounce off each other. They're absolutely fantastic to have in the gym together. But the serious work does get done.
Yeah, that's good. Tony Bellew, obviously he's now fighting at cruiserweight.
Yeah.
When will an announcement be made? When is it likely for him to be fighting for a world title?
We're just waiting on Eddie to make the announcement on the next fight. The next fight is a big fight, so we're just waiting for confirmation. Really, we've already started training. We kind of know which fight it's going to be, but we're just waiting for it all to be announced by Big Eddie.
Fair enough. All right, I've got Ayaz on the call, my partner. He's got a couple of questions for you, David, then we'll let you go.
No worries.
Hello, Dave. How you doing?
Hi, mate. How's you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. I want to ask you, Jamie McDonnell, are we ever going to see him step up a world?
Yes, step up weight, 100%. 100%. He's going to fight at bantamweight his next one. We'll see how he feels at that. And also it's about what fights are out there. We would like to fight Payano, but it doesn't look like Heyman's people are wanting Jamie to fight Payano next. I think the name that they've given us isn't him. So we'll see. We'll see how that works out. But then we anticipate next year he'll be up at super bantamweight.
Can we see him in the future fight Scott Quigg?
Yeah, I would be surprised if that fight didn't happen, because obviously they've both got the same promoter, and it's a fight we've said. Obviously it makes sense. You step up, you fight Quigg. But there's other fights out there at super bantamweight. There's a lot of big fights for him at super bantamweight. There's obviously the Carl Frampton fight there. I'm sure that could get made. I think stylistically, I think Frampton's a better match for Jamie than what Quigg is. I still think Jamie can beat Quigg, but I just think style-wise, I think Frampton's possibly easier to beat than what Quigg is. That's not suggesting that any reflection on how I think that fight would go between those two. But also there's Seja, who's Jamie's already beaten. He had a big fight that he won out there in the States a week before we was out there, and he then called out Jamie. So there's an option for that one. They've spoke about Santa Cruz. So there's a lot of big fights out there at super bantamweight. So yeah, definitely he's going to step up there. And definitely I do envisage him fighting Quigg at some point.
Obviously, you were part of Haymakers. From your perspective, do you think George Greggs will be a world champion?
Very difficult to say, because you can go back to the likes of when Bruno kept getting beat, and you could say, is Frank Bruno ever going to be a world champion? But then he got his final shot and he took it and he won it, So there is a chance that George can come back and become a world champion. My issue with George is that I do think that he needs. For me, Adam Booth was a great fit for George. I saw it up close and personal how they worked together and what Adam did for George, stylistically, mentally, everything. And I've seen the decline in him since he left Adam. It's none of my business to tell him that he shouldn't have left Adam Booth. He should be going back to Adam Booth. That's none of my business. But it's just my observation from seeing it from the inside. Some fighters just they work with certain people, and certain people can get the best out of them, and they can create something special. And I think he was on course to doing something big in the sport and being special. I do think he's gone backwards. I don't know if it's something that he can pull back, but if it is, then he needs to go with somebody. If not Adam, he needs to go with somebody like Adam. He needs that back. He does need that back. He needs that defense, that twitchiness, that sharpness, and that speed. He needs to go back to that. And if he can go back to that, then yes, he can win a world title. He was a very, very good fighter, very, very good potential to be a world star in our eyes. We used to be very excited about him.
From your perspective, who wins the fight, DeGale or Groves?
Now, DeGale. Now, I think DeGale's improved. I think George has gone backwards.
Mm-hmm. And finally, what do you think of Nathan Clevery's performance against Von Farah?
Nuts and guts. It was full of it. He put everything out there. He really gave it a good go. Thought he had a great chance of winning it. Unfortunately, he broke his nose, and that's very difficult to, especially when you go into a fast paced and hard fight like that. When you've got a broken nose, that's very, very difficult to cope with. But I do think he needs some sort of defence. If he's going to go any further in the sport, if he's going to get that world title again, and win the big fights, he needs to have some sort of defence. That, looking at it wasn't. I don't like seeing fighters taking that amount of punches to the head.
Okay, David. Last question I've got for you. I'm going to have to put you on the spot here.
No worries.
aside from yourself, at this moment in time, now not the most successful, but just purely in your opinion, who is the best trainer we've got in Britain?
Adam Booth.
No time to think about it.
I've worked with Adam for years, and you know, I'm not embarrassed to say that I've learned a lot off Adam Booth. I've been lucky to have been around or worked with a lot of good trainers and watched a lot of good trainers. What people don't realise is that I started off, back in 1996. I started training kids and amateur kids and stuff like that. And you know, I seen the Ingles work up close. I was there for 10 years. But then I did little bits with Howard Rainey. Then I started for years. I was doing the house seconds for Frank Warren. Now people like to take the mick and mock the bucket boy. I was a bucket boy. All I did was I stuck a stool in that ring and held the bucket while some fighter just spat in the bucket, and that's it. You wash the gum shield out and that's it. And people like to mock that. Fair dues. But you know what? In that as that bucket boy, I learned so much. Fighters that were in the ring, that were in that corner, that might, Jimmy Tibbs would be training them. You could see so many fighters, there's so many trainers, so many great trainers that are in that corner that are working. And I just used to listen and I'd soak it all up. I've worked with Adam for years, up close, working with him, the fighters, with George Groves, with David Ayaz. You get to learn things, you get to soak up things. I'm lucky to have done that. I've been over to America and worked there. So all in all, when you look at things and you look at the trainers that we've got, Adam Booth and what he does overall is fantastic. He's a great trainer. Jimmy Tibbs is one of my favourite people I've ever worked in corner with. I've only worked in the corner with him twice, but the knowledge that man's got is fantastic.
Okay, and how do you think he's going to get on with Chris Eubank Jr.?
I've actually spoke to him about this. I was a bit shocked. I was a bit shocked about that one. Listen, if he's allowed to work as he wants to work and as he needs to work with a fighter, then it'll be great, and it's the best thing that could happen to Chris Eubank Jr. Because the things that he needs to improve on, Adam can improve. I always thought that the biggest mistake that Cleverly made was not sticking it out with Adam. He went there and he started there, but he didn't stay there.
Mr. Coldwell, thank you very much for giving us some of your time today.
Not a problem, mate. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Now it's the part of the show where we do the preview. So we're going to preview the fights for this coming weekend. Okay, so there's a little card I just want to mention. On the Friday night, Kiko Martinez, he gets back in the ring after his loss to Scott Quigg, TKO round 2 to Scott Quigg. That was in Manchester in July. He gets back in there in Spain, in his home country. He fights a guy called Harold Molina. Harold Molina, 18 wins, 12 losses, 3 draws. It's only an 8-rounder, but at least it gets Kiko Martinez back out. His record now 32 wins and 6 losses. Okay, moving on to the Saturday night, because there's not much on the Friday. Moving on to the Saturday night, there's a big bill in Sheffield Arena. Gavin McDonnell, top of the bill, he defends his EBU title against Jeremy Parody. Now, a lot of people may not have heard of Jeremy Parody. He's the guy who lost to Carl Frampton. Carl Frampton knocked him out in the 6th round. That was back in 2013, I believe. So yeah, he's a good fighter. His record's 37-2. I'm not sure how credible all his opponents have been, but yeah, 37 wins, 2 losses and 1 draw. Jeremy Parody. He fights Gavin McDonnell, obviously brother of Jamie McDonnell. So Gavin McDonnell record 13 wins, 0 losses and 2 draws. That would be a good little scrap, to be honest. I think that's quite a test for Gavin McDonnell, because Parody's very experienced and durable, but not a lot of punching power himself. He's only got I think he's got 9 knockouts. Yeah, 9 knockouts in 37 wins. Moving down that card, it's his Matchroom Sports debut. Chris Eubank Jr. He fights Tony Jetta, and Chris Eubank is defending his interim WBA world middleweight title against Tony Jetta. Chris Eubank Jr., massive prospect for the future, Ayaz.
Massive prospect in the future. I actually like Chris Eubank Jr. and I want to see how he does against Tony Jetta as this is his first fight and he's headlining the Sheffield Motorpoint Arena.
I don't think he's a headline. I think he's the chief support behind McDonnell.
Yes. Oh, sorry, because Brooke pulled out last week, innit, due to the injury.
Yes. I don't know what's going to happen about that because there was a lot of talk because obviously it's the 24th of October on Saturday and Fury was supposed to fight Vladimir Klitschko and that was going to be a pay-per-view and half of the card was going to be in Sheffield with Brooke topping the bill against Diego Chavez, but the Fury and Vlad fight got cancelled because of an injury with Vlad, and now the Brooke fight has been cancelled because of an injury with Brooke. I'm not sure what's going to happen because obviously Vlad Klitschko is going to be fighting on the 28th of November and that's also going to be a pay-per-view. But I don't know if there's going to be an English-based card as well because I don't know if Sky are going to have a fantastically easy job of selling the pay-per-view to the public if there's only like one fight on the bill, that we're interested in as, all the casual fans are interested in. Okay. Moving over to United States of America, Nebraska. He's really put this place on the map. Terence Crawford, he defends his WBO World Super Lightweight title against Thierry Jean. His record, 29 wins, 20 by knockout and 1 loss. Now, his only loss was to Lamont Peterson, and now he fights arguably the best 140 fighter for the last few years, Terence Crawford. Well, sorry, I take that back. We haven't seen anything of him at 140 yet. So, he was a great 135 fighter. And it'd be interesting because he's only had, I think he's only had the one fight at 140. He fought Thomas Delorme and knocked him out in the 6th round to win the vacant WBO World Super Lightweight title. Again, the Super Lightweight title was also known as the Light Welterweight, the 140 title, the division that Danny Garcia held them belts in or holds them belts in. So Thierry Jean, credible opponent, but again, I think Terence Crawford probably beats him quite well. Terence Crawford trying to move to 27-0. So we're going to go back to Terence Crawford in a moment, but moving down that card, Andy Ruiz Jr., he tries to get to 26-0. He fights Rafael Zumbano Love. A lot of people will remember Zumbano Love. He came over and fought Joshua, and Joshua stopped him in the 2nd round. Well, he gets out. He's actually had a 1 win since the Joshua fight. He's only had 1 fight, but the 1 win, and he knocked the guy out in the 1st round. So he gets in. He's only had 1 round of boxing since his fight against Joshua. So he fights Andy Ruiz Jr. Andy Ruiz Jr., it's good to see him get back out again. Again, he's a prospect in the heavyweight division from America. Moving down that card also, a lot of people haven't mentioned this. Evgeny Gradovich fights on the bill. He fights a guy called Aldemar Silva Santos. Now, this is his first fight back after losing his IBF World Featherweight title to Lee Selby, who we talked about earlier on the show. So, he fights Aldemar Silva Santos. Santos's record, 19 wins and 8 losses. Gradovich, obviously, 19 wins, 1 loss and the 1 draw. It'd be good to see what he's got left in him. I think he will have a lot left, even though he was beaten pretty clearly. Anything to add on that card, Ayaz?
All I want to do is just see the fights happening.
Yeah, me too. I said I'd move back to Terence Crawford. How big of a prospect, because we've only seen 1 fight at 140, how big of a prospect do you think he is in the 140 division? Bear in mind, everything he's done has been at 135.
I reckon he's actually quite a big prospect. He could be next pound-for-pound star in the 140 division.
Yeah, Frank Warren thinks he will be. I'd love to see him fight Danny Garcia. but I don't know what's going on with Danny Garcia. Has he moved up to 147
Yeah.
yet, or is it still just?
Remember, he had that 147. His first 147 fight, wasn't it against? Is it Lamont Peterson or?
No. It was against. The Lamont Peterson fight was at a catch weight. He fought Paulie Malignaggi,
Yes, he did.
didn't he? Yes, Paulie Malignaggi. That was his one fight at 147. Obviously, he stopped Malignaggi in the 9th round. But I just don't know. I mean, it'd be good. I mean, it would have been good for those guys to have fought maybe last year. And who do you think would win if that fight did take place before Danny Garcia moved up to 147? If he was still at 140 today, who would win, in your opinion, Danny Garcia or Terence Crawford?
The thing is, I ain't seen much of Crawford. Garcia, I've seen a lot of him. So, in my opinion, I reckon Garcia wins that fight.
I'm going to have to disagree. You should watch the Crawford-Ricky Burns fight. Ricky Burns, obviously he was a great champion. He lost to, what was that guy's name? He broke his jaw. Ricky Burns had a broken jaw. Oh gosh, it's absolutely slipped me. Totally forgot his name. Ray Beltran. That was it. Yeah, Ray Beltran. He beat Ricky Burns pretty clearly, and it went down as a split draw. Then Ricky Burns obviously carried his WBO World Lightweight title into the next fight, where he fought Terence Crawford. And Terence Crawford absolutely schooled him, in my opinion, and he was fantastic. Terence Crawford. We'd never really seen anything of him over here until that fight, and he was brilliant. And then we saw Terence Crawford's fought quite a few people since then and got some good wins. He fought Gamboa. Gave Gamboa his first loss, and then he gave a shot to Raimundo Beltran again, because obviously he should have been the title holder against Ricky Burns at the end of that fight. He fought Beltran, and then he beat Beltran unanimously. Again, I'm not sure if that was a voluntary or a mandatory, but nonetheless, he beat Beltran. He moved on to the next fight, Thomas Delorme, and he gave Thomas Delorme his second loss on his record. Obviously, his other loss was to Luis Carlos Abregu. But yeah, I think he's a brilliant fighter. And honestly, it'd be crazy if he moves up to 147 soon, because he's got tons and tons and tons of ability. And it'll be fantastic to see him mix it with the big boys in that division. Okay, unfortunately, that's all we've got time for here on the BoxHard podcast. So we're going to conclude this episode. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening last week and the week before and the week before and the week before. We love it. We're also on iTunes now, so you can go on to podcasts and you can search for the BoxHard podcast, or just type in Boxing Podcast. We're only third down the list behind Toe to Toe and Boxing News. For everybody that listens on SoundCloud, thank you very much. Please follow, please retweet, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.